Right now, Lucasfilm has been very busy promoting not just Indy 5, The Dial of Destiny, but also Skeleton Crew, which arrives this holiday season, as well as The Acolyte, that's a Star Wars show being led by Leslie Headland, that is described to be a very controversial piece among Star Wars fans around the globe. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support, and without further ado, let's jump right into the subject. Now, we know that people like Harrison Ford, James Mangold, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Kathleen Kennedy have all been promoting The Dial of Destiny, and so far, from what it sounds like, is more than half of those people that I just listed have been very ego-driven about this movie, and how it does not need to pick up the lore from the previous real 3 movies. I don't really count Crystal Skull, to be honest. Indiana Jones 4, to me, fell extremely flat, and The Dial of Destiny could very well be even below that from what we've been hearing by the Cannes Film Festival critics and more. So let's jump right into exactly what Harrison Ford had to say further about Indiana Jones 5, and specifically revolving around the Indy 5 ending, what really bothered Harrison Ford, and also what was happening behind the scenes for the production of The Dial of Destiny, revolving also around one of the 6 endings of Indiana Jones 5. Now, on top of this, what's really surprising and ultimately revealing has much to do with Shorty, aka Short Round, portrayed by Ke Huy Quan, and really popular character, by the way, in Temple of Doom. It grew a lot on fans. Now, with Harrison Ford endlessly promoting Indy 5 to the world lately, he recently had something big to say to everybody involving the ending of the film. Now, Ford went on to deliver the following to all fans. One of the biggest pieces of criticism that I had with the decision for the ending by, Kathy was, where is my little guy Short Round? How could you not have Shorty? I kept telling James, where's my little man? He won an award for everything, everywhere. How could we not have him in the final frames of this movie? Made me take a step back and say this is just wrong. There was a point where we were experimenting on how Shorty could be involved into the last scene, but both James and Kathy ran into creative problems. I was like, whatever, I'm too old to argue in this business, but I still speak to Ke Huy Quan every day, and he really wanted to be a big part of the cliffhanger that we have at the end, and it just didn't work out that way. We had storyboards and test footage, the whole 9 yards, but I said whatever they want to do is whatever at this point. I just thought it would have been fun. Now let me just stop here quick. Again, Ford always gives these awkward interviews where he always pauses, he stumbles upon his words a lot. He really sounds very monotone and bored. That's just how he is. Obviously, we know why. We've talked about this several times. But what's interesting, though, is how he had a lot of problems with how they did not include Short Round in the ending of this movie, and how there was an initial plan. Now, this all alludes to what we talked about just days ago, about how one of the 6 endings did indeed involve Quan, and how he was supposed to have a scene in China, where both Indiana Jones and Helena travel from Sri Lanka all the way to China, and meet up with Short Round, where they find him in his home meditating, and we're going to talk about that more so, exactly what they were experimenting with. So, the thing about Harrison Ford is that he says that he's too old to argue in this business. I think he's beginning to realize that he just wants out of Hollywood now. He's getting ready to do Marvel as Red Hulk as his big final debut in the movies. That's apparently his plan, to retire, exiting film by closing out with Marvel. So that's going to be interesting too. Anyways, on top of this, further, apart from what Harrison Ford stated, this all is alluding to how Ford was endlessly defending Quan and even had heated arguments with Kathy Kennedy behind the scenes, as Quan did take part in one of the 6 endings that were filmed, one of which involved Shorty reuniting with Indiana in China, where Jones visits his home to find him meditating, and eventually Short Round gives Indy a map to the Himalayan mountains for another relic to be discovered. The original idea by James alright, we're talking about the director and the creator, was for a sequel to be set up featuring Short Round and a new character to continue the Indy legacy somehow. Kathy shot down this ending and wanted to focus more so on Helena in the end, as part of her plan for an Indy 5 sequel. Heated arguments continued, and did happen between Harrison and Mangold at one point as well regarding the absence and cancellation of Short Round, as Kathy felt Temple of Doom was the most hated film and the most criticized movie of the franchise, and didn't want to give fans a reminder of that. Let me just say one thing, Temple of Doom absolutely is not the most critical movie of all. It mostly has a lot to do with the fact of Indy 4, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. There's no doubt about it that that by far is the worst one of the worst so far, and I think that Dial of Destiny will dethrone that. Without a doubt. I believe it's going to take its place as the worst movie out of the entire Indiana Jones franchise without hesitation. The other thing about this that's very unfair is how Ke Kwan was supposed to have a big moment in the Indy 5 ending. This was supposed to be the ending that was going to set up another relic to be discovered. You know, what I like so much about Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I've mentioned this many times before in the past, is how it really kind of teases all these different relics that are stored away that are top secret in boxes. And they could have done something similar like that in this sense, where it kind of leaves things open. It leaves things, you know, yourself questioning yourself, where's it going to go from here? Who's going to be in the next sequel or the next story, whatever have you. I guess James wanted to keep it open-ended. This way, if they ever want to revisit the character, either through maybe, you know, having Short Round as the main character with some CGI work to bring in Indiana Jones as a cameo or two to kind of continue the legacy properly, they could have done something like that. That might have been what Mangold was thinking about doing. But what's interesting about this is how Kathleen Kennedy sabotaged this ending. She wanted nothing to do with Kwan because she felt Temple of Doom was too controversial of a film to really exclude any kind of reference to that. This is exactly what happened, by the way, with the sequel trilogy, of how she wanted no references to the prequel trilogy because she knew how controversial they really were. But eventually those prequel films, let's be honest, it grew on fans. It really did, especially when you're comparing it to the sequels. It is more Star Wars than the sequels ever will be, and that's a fact. You know, I think that at the end of the day, Kathleen Kennedy just does not understand Indiana Jones and Star Wars, two major Lucasfilm brands that have now been endlessly mishandled. And how she even is now admitting that there's a sequel in the talks and in the works already, and how that's moving onwards, is quite concerning, because she did say she wants to expand the newly established characters like Helena, Teddy, etc. So overall, guys, I'm really intrigued to hear what you all have to say about Harrison, you know, talking about Kwan and how there were, of course, a lot of problems like creative differences happening on board, stuff like that. It's unfortunate, but this is the type of thing that always follows in Kathleen Kennedy's, you know, path all the time. So guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.